bail is predicated on wealth. So if you have access to wealth, you make bail. If you don't have access to wealth, you don't make bail. That's not justice. There's no doubt this is still a work in progress, and there are other changes that have to be made. There are consequences that we have to adjust for.
I'll say New York Governor Andrew Cuomo kind of downplaying the consequences of New York's new no bail release law, which are shocking indeed. Those consequences, as violent criminals are being allowed to walk the streets without putting up any bail almost immediately after arrest. Some examples. These are just three. A serial bank robber was just released again after his sixth holdup since December 30th, 2019. A man arrested for sucker punching an NYPD cop was released without bail despite multiple charges. A woman accused of slapping three Jewish women, yelling anti-Semitic slurs, was released the same day without bail, only to be arrested a day later for punching another woman in the face. So what happens to a city when politicians put the rights of violent criminals above the safety of police and innocent civilians? Let's bring in New York State Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis. Good to see you, Assemblywoman. Thanks for being here. Well, I would think if you can get away with punching a cop in the mouth and then rolling down on the sidewalk with him, as this crazy guy did, you can get away with anything, right?
And he had 24 prior arrests.
24.
And there was one other example that was really horrific. On Christmas Eve, a young mother of 3 was killed by someone who was driving unlicensed, someone who was in this country illegally, and he left the scene, was apprehended, and they released him back on the street.
It's all tragic to me, but what bothers me the most about what Governor Cuomo just said, that soundbite that we heard, is that bail should be dependent on what class you fall into. Because rich people can pay bail, for example, and poor people can't, then they shouldn't have the same standard, right? The rules should be the same for everybody, no matter who is breaking the law, and it could be adjusted to be at a level that is, more affordable or reasonable. But to have no bail and allow these people just to continue repeating the crimes, there's no messaging to them that says, don't do this anymore.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, people agree that the bail laws needed to be tweaked and changed. However, this was just eliminating bail. And you talk about some of the serious crimes: criminally negligent homicide, manslaughter, strangulation, stalking, assault, aggravated assault of a child. I have the list on my website, NicoleForNY.com. This is just very extreme. And not only that, we're no longer protecting the witnesses. So within 15 days of that arrest, the witnesses' information is turned over to the defense, which will lead to certainly to witness intimidation and other people not coming forward to.
It's scary.
It is really scary.
There's a separate issue here that's apparent, that we're criminalizing psychiatric cases, but I want to go down the path of this specific thing. Look, criminals do crimes. If we locked them up for life, there'd be less crimes. But there's a cost here, too. And what is the cost to taxpayers when someone is not out on bail? I heard Rikers is $300,000 a year. So what does it cost to keep them around a couple months because they can't make a $10,000 bail? What does that cost taxpayers?
Well, what is the cost? We're seeing human life as the cost. If someone who is very dangerous to society, someone has a criminal history, we shouldn't be taking away judges' discretion. Tweak the bail system. Don't throw it all out, and that's what we're doing here in the state of New York. And one of the arguments is because they want to close Rikers Island. That's not a very good argument to say that we're just going to release everyone because.
Are they doing $300,000 a year in damage? I mean, there's a cost benefit.
We just had 2 people that were killed. 2 people were killed.
Adam, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So this is becoming a national trend. In San Francisco, they refer to it as cash bail, and they're focusing on the money. But I take your comment that the system needs to be tweaked as being very constructive. So briefly, how would you tweak it?
Well, look, first of all, we got to restore discretion for the judges. We have to be able to consider dangerousness. If someone poses a public safety threat, we have to look at someone's criminal history, and I think the judges need to be able to make a decision based on that and have full information. We can use we can certainly look at bail for low-level offenses, for first-time offenders. But when somebody has a lengthy rap sheet or it's a very serious crime, it's a violent crime, we shouldn't be considering that. Look, domestic violence victims, you could be stalked, strangled, assaulted. The person is arrested and released. And in fact, it happens in upstate New York. The person went back to the woman's house. Thankfully, he was caught, and now he's being held without bail. But that could have been a very different circumstance.
Gary?
Yeah, Nicole, I'm curious. I'm going to go right in your wheelhouse here. It seems obvious what you're for here. There should be some kind of bail system, especially for violent criminals. That's like a no-brainer, for crying out loud. So I'm curious, what is the political calculus? Why was this even passed in its current state? Who benefits from this? I mean, that's what I'm trying. Is it just a financial thing, as Jonas alluded? Because beyond that, I can't figure out what politician or group of people benefit from it right now.
You want to hear what's really crazy? We had the advocates in Albany this week actually lobbying for more changes, saying it doesn't go far enough. It's the far left wing, far left organizations that are pushing this, and the governor is afraid to make changes to upset them. Meanwhile, New Yorkers are at risk, and we could be reasonable about this and make tweaks and sign my petition at NicoleForNY.com, because we just want the tweaks done to fix this system so we're not jeopardizing
Nicole,
public safety.
I have a final question. It's got to be the last one, I'm afraid, because we've been here before. We had a terrible crisis with crime all during the 70s and the 80s, led up to 2,200 murders every year. We now have less than 400 because we stopped turnstile justice, because we put people away, and we did it while saving money, while cutting the New York budget, not increasing the New York City budget. So, I mean, there are answers, there are solutions, and these guys are going back to the things that don't work.
Yeah, and instead of keeping someone in jail, and I think that's a revolving criminal justice system, if we are not dealing with an individual's underlying issues sometimes, if it is mental illness, for example, we're not dealing with that. They're just releasing people back onto the street so they could assault someone else, be a danger to themselves. It's one of the things that they need to do, perhaps expand Kendra's law so they can petition to have these people have a mandated outpatient treatment.
The most important role of government, some people say the only role that should be for government, is keeping innocent people safe. And the government here is not doing it. We got to move on. Great to see Assemblywoman. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.